meet my bride. Let's go for a ride in my newfangled automobile. Just where we will go, nobody knows, but it's sure a great way to feel. Behind the wheel of the speed meter steel, it's my newfangled automobile.
Hello and welcome to Vintage Car History. I'm Wild Bill. Auto racing has been a professional sport since the 1890s. And like all professional sports, the ultimate goal of the participants is to make money from the spectators. One way to get more spectators is by enlisting the help of the news media. But the press won't come unless there's something new to report about. And scandal is a topic that reporters have and still love to gossip about to the world. So today, we'll look at the scandalous career of Dorothy Levitt. Dorothy Elizabeth Levi was born in the London borough of Hackney to a prosperous Jewish family in 1882. Her father, Jacob, owned a successful business importing both exotic teas and jewelry from around the world. As a young girl, Dorothy enjoyed both an appropriate education for the time and the luxuries of living on the wealthier side of society. She enjoyed athletics, both personal and competitive, and due to her physique, had the interest of most available men in town. Her father changed their last name to Levitt when she was a teenager, and she kept the name. He also arranged a marriage for her, as was customary. However, Dorothy refused the arrangement and would remain unmarried all her life. With no husband or dowry, she needed to find work, and so through some family connections, she got a job at the Napier Company as a secretary in 1901. It was there that she became acquainted with Selwyn Edge. Edge was working with Montague Napier, developing race cars, and he spotted Dorothy. Not only was she quite pleasant to observe, he had also been racing on the continent and noted just how much of a ruckus in the press that Camille Dugas was causing, and that ruckus was increasing the quantity of race spectators. England had no equivalent to Dugas, and so Selwyn took it upon himself to turn Dorothy Levitt into the fastest woman in Britain. Keep in mind that in the Western world at the time, the idea of women and men competing against each other in professional sports was just about unthinkable. Auto racing was a gentleman's sport, and a gentleman in late Victorian and Edwardian society was expected to support and defer to women in public. Since they were young boys, men were taught to open doors for a lady, ladies first, pay the bill at the restaurant, and so on. And for the men driving race cars, how can a gentleman honestly compete against a woman when they're supposed to be allowed first and be deferred to? It rubbed against the social norms of the time and was quite scandalous, which of course attracted the press. So, Edge took Levitt to Paris, where she undertook a crash course in race car driving. She competed in her first race in 1903, which she finished but did not place. Returning to England with Edge, Dorothy would next compete in the Southport speed trials, where she would receive a class win and a lot of attention. When Camille Dugas raced, she would wear clothing that was hard to distinguish from the men. Not so with Dorothy. She would wear the latest fashions for a woman driver. Indeed, she would create them. To be so flamboyantly female as a race car driver was shocking to all involved, man and woman alike. And the news, media, and gossip columnists loved it, writing story after story and taking picture after picture. The press made money, and people came to the races to see the spectacle for themselves, which made the competitors, including Levitt, money. The Paris-Madrid race of 1903 put a temporary halt to car racing in Europe, and many racers turned to motorboat racing, including Levitt. Being supplied boats by Edge, she won several races and also set the first world water speed record that year, managing about 17 yachts in her Napier-powered speedboat. The ban on auto racing was loosened a bit in 1904, and Dorothy returned to the track where possible. Any race that would allow a woman, Hill climbs, speed trials, and exhibitions, she would be there, followed by a herd of reporters. Over the next few years, she became quite the darling of the press, winning races, breaking social barriers, and gaining both fans and enemies. Many people lauded her for daring to challenge the norms of society, while others declared her vile and pretending to be a man. 1906 proved pivotal for Levitt when she set a new woman's world land speed record at the Blackpool Speed Trials. She drove her massive 100 horsepower Napier to a speed of about 91 miles an hour, for which the press dubbed her the fastest girl on earth. But in 1907, she was denied permission to enter a race at Brooklands, and so, with Selwyn's support, went to the continent to race, winning several in France and Germany over the next few years. 1909 saw the publication of her book, The Woman and the Car, a chatty little handbook for women who want to motor. In it, she describes motoring from a woman's perspective and how to do it. Some of her most well-known advice from the book being to use your hand mirror as a rear view and to have a gun in your handbag. She also wrote much about fashionable attire for driving and also attacked the establishment for restricting and stereotyping women from being able to freely drive a car. And wherever she went, the press followed as she challenged the roles of men and women in the modern society of her time. As fast as Dorothy entered the spotlight, she left it. By 1910, she was not the spectacle she once was, and so the press abandoned her. She was found dead in 1922, the autopsy citing morphine overdose, heart failure, and even measles as possible causes of death. She was 39. During her lifetime, Dorothy Levitt played an important role in making it acceptable for a woman to drive a car. And once it was accomplished and thus no longer scandalous, the press moved on to the next scandal to normalize. Thanks for watching Vintage Car History, and we'll see you next week. Peace.